you could actually increase your ability to follow through and help make new habits and help them actually retain it, to help them make them stick by adding emotion.
Here's the challenge. They say sitting is the new smoking.
I want you to remember the word fast. Fast. F-A-S-T. The letter F stands for this. Forget. Forget. And you're like, Jim, you're the memory coach. Why are you telling me to forget to learn faster?
Welcome back, Kwik Brain. Your question today is there a simple trick to be able to boost recall and really help to make habits stick? This is my birthday week. and in the theme of that, I want to talk about celebration and how you could use the act of celebrating to actually boost your recall and actually help to make your habits and your routines more sticky. And so let's talk about what it takes to really make things sticky. And you've heard me say this, if you've been a student of ours, if you've read our book, if you've listened to our podcast, and those are reminders to give you some impetus to be able to do that if you're kind of slacking in those areas, is that all learning is state dependent. All learning, just like life, is state dependent. And when I say state, I mean your emotional state, the snapshot of your mood, of your mind and your body, and like maybe some people would say it's how they're feeling. And it's, how is this related to your memory and your habits? Well, we're talking about, and I'm not going to go too much into the science, and because our podcast is very short formed, we want to make it very usable and bite sized. But when you think about high school, you learn about our limbic system, and it serves a lot of functions, right? More than previously believed, right? It is thought that the structures there, it's there to process and regulate emotions, the formation of new memories, arousal, learnings, right? So when you're thinking about your limbic system, this is it, many functions here. And it's really key when we're talking about the formation of new memories. The amygdala part, which is part of it, interacts with your hippocampus. Now, amygdala we're thinking about emotions, right? When we're thinking about hippocampus, we're thinking about the formation of new memories. And so the amygdala interacts with the hippocampus, and by attaching emotional context to memories, if that makes sense. So all learning is all memory is state dependent. All life is state dependent. All habits, a lot of them help. You can actually increase your ability to follow through and help make new habits and help them actually retain it, to help them make them stick by adding emotion. In our memory course, Quick Recall, which many of you are students of, 30 days to jumpstart your memory, to really make your brain, your memory unstoppable. We talk about there are three variables in physics, right? There's frequency, there's duration, and there's intensity. And so you think about building a muscle, right? You could use frequency. You could use lots of reps. You could do lots of repetition. Some people will use that for memory. They'll use lots of repetition. They'll repeat things over and over again. Or there's duration to get the results. Maybe it's not the number of times you're doing something, but maybe it's the length of time. Maybe you're spending more time, duration on that treadmill, or more time in that fitness class, right? In memory training, it could be spending more time studying, right? That's duration. Now, those are great, but frequency and duration take what? It takes time, right? And in this busy world, our podcast here, Kwik Brain, is for their brain hacks or strategies and tools for busy people who don't have a lot of time. So intensity could get that similar result. You could work out so intensely and not as much time, but some people, they go to the gym and they don't put full intensity in it. So they have to spend more time to get the same kind of results. But you can use intensity. And for me, when it comes to memory training, intensity comes in the form of visualization, and a lot of it comes in the form of emotion. And you know this, right? That you think about how many of you have I'm also looking at Facebook and Instagram here. How many of you have a song that could take you back to when you're a teenager, right? Because information by itself is forgettable, but information when it's combined with an emotion becomes unforgettable, right? So I'm going to go through you got to get an idea of what this brain hack is going to be. That's going to help to accelerate your habit formation and accelerate your memory. Also, You could use frequency, duration, and intensity to marketing. Some of you are in the sales business or business development or in marketing. You could do frequency, lots of ads, right? Or lots of sales calls. You can do duration, longer sales videos or infomercials or presentations, right? Or you could also do intensity. Something could be so intense you see on social media and you just think it touches you emotionally. You just have to go and buy it, because we are not logical. We're biological, right? There's this phrase in sales that said people don't buy logically, they buy emotionally, right? And they justify logically because we are biological. You think about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. We are this chemical soup, right, of emotions, and we do things emotionally. And so when you take information and you attach an emotion to it, it becomes more of a long-term memory. Same thing with habits. There's somebody we've interviewed a number of times on our podcast, a good friend of mine. We also cite his work in Limitless on habits. Right? Many of you know it's Dr. BJ Fogg of Stanford University, and he runs a laboratory there, all around behavioral psychology and why we do what we do, and what does it really take to create a new habit and actually break old habits, and he'll talk about like summarizing his whole work and habits into 3 words. He says, emotions create habits. Emotions create habits. And I would say emotions help create memories. And that's really, we have habits of thoughts, we have habits of feelings, we have habits of action also as well. But memories are a habit, because you do not have a memory, you do a memory. You do not have a memory, it's a process. What's the process? 3 things: encoding, storing, and retrieval. Right? And you learn that in Psych 101, right? There's 3 stages of a memory. It is first encoding, then storing, and then retrieving that information. And you want to get all 3 down, because that's what will help you to have what I call quick recall, right? This limitless ability to learn information. And really, it's about, what is it? First, retrieval is about association. Right? So we talk about association. Storage is about location. And many of you know the location methods that we teach in the book or in our podcast, including the memory palace as another one. And when you're talking about encoding, for me, a big part of encoding is emotion. So you have emotion, location, and what? Association. Those are 3 real big pillars. If I was to add another one in there, part of the encoding part is not just emotions, it's visualization. Visualization, imagination helps you to remember something. In fact, the 2 questions I ask myself when I want to remember something is, what do I see? How does it make me feel? Because usually a lot of things we need to remember are things we hear. You heard it on a YouTube, and I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube. That's where you put the extended version of our podcast. And so make sure we have well over 600,000 subscribers there. Make sure you could watch it there on video also as well, or bookmark it for future be able to learning occasion. And so in there, we will talk about be able to adding emotion and visualization to help you to be able to learn something. And so I asked myself, what do I because I'm already hearing it in a podcast or on a video, or maybe an audio book, or maybe in a conversation. You hear somebody's name, you hear a meeting, or a lecture if you're a student. What do I see? How does it make me feel? That way you could hear it, see it, and feel it, right? So you're using all of these different learning styles, right? Some of you have preferences where you prefer to learn something by seeing it. Other people prefer to learn something maybe by listening to it. Some people like to read a book. Some people like to listen to the book. Some people like, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and let's get into that book club, right? And they learn it by doing it. That's why we created the book club and in our app, actually, where people are sharing. They have learning buddies there in our app, again, the Kwik Brain universe. And we're going through each of the chapters, and you can learn and share best ideas and practices, and people hold you accountable, and people are like challenge each other to memory games that are in there, all the quick starts that are in Limitless, right? So that's why we make it available. But going back to this, those 3 stages, you encode it, you store it, and then you retrieve it. And so what is the brain hack, if you will, or the tool, the tip, hack, just another word for like maybe a little bit of a shortcut using just the basis of your positive psychology and neuroscience, I would say, is adding emotion. Adding emotion will greatly intensify a memory, and adding emotion will help you to help make habits stick more long term. And so for emotion to rewire your brain, you must feel that emotion while you're. And here's the thing, the emotion, I'll give you 3 areas to want to remember things. You want to remember it, you want to feel the emotion, and you remember, do not have emotions. You what? You do emotions. We take nouns and we turn them into verbs. You do not have the emotion of love. You do love. You do not have the emotion of frustration. You do frustration, right? You do not have the emotion of confidence. You do confidence. Just like you do not have focus. You're like, Jim, yes, that's why I listen to your podcast, because I do not have focus. You do focus. You do not have motivation. You do motivation. And when you take a noun and turn it into a verb, it gives you your power back, because then you don't have to just rely on, oh, I hope I have these things today, right? It's actually you do it, and then that gives you your agency back. So when you want to do it, you add the emotion 3 different areas. When you remember something, let's take habits, okay? When you remember to remember someone's name, not even actually remember the person's name, but you're meeting somebody and you just remember that you should remember the person's name, then you want to reinforce that. Remember this, whatever you reinforce or you reward, you're going to do more of, right? For you and the people around you. So when you do something, most of us are so good at putting ourselves down, at criticizing ourselves. Somebody gives you a compliment, even, like, wow, it's really great that you were able to run that, around the track a couple of times, and we'll mitigate it. That was only a couple of times, right? Or it's congratulations, you got that promotion. It's like, yeah, it was no big deal. So we're really good sometimes, and I'm guilty of this also as well. And sometimes we mitigate ourselves, right? That we're really good at pointing out where we do things wrong or focus on what we did wrong, but we're not really good at celebrating the things that we do right. And so I would say is, whatever you reinforce, even the littlest things, you'll get more of, because think about it. When we're talking about, these are these molecules of motivation, right? There are molecules of motivation. When we're thinking about dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, like dopamine, this is the molecule of more. You want more of it. So when you reward yourself and not wait for somebody else to reward you, like you remember to remember, then just give yourself a little buzz. You say, and what does it look like, right? Really simple, right? You could say yes, right? You could just go like, yes, victory, right? You could do whatever you want to feel good, what you would do when you normally celebrate. Like if you were at a basketball game and they called you out at halftime to throw the free throw for charity. If you get it in there, you get a car, you get, $10,000 or whatever, right? Imagine you go out hesitant, maybe you get called down, right? First of all, you're really nervous, and you would just be like, they give you the ball and you're holding the ball in your hand. You could feel it, right? And you hear everyone kind of cheering for you, but you have this doubt and everything else, but you do the shot and just imagine it going in. What are you going to do? How good are you going to feel, right? And it wasn't that external world that actually triggers you to feel that way. That was the rules you had, but you created it to yourself, right? So whatever move you would do, praise, whatever accomplishment, you could just say like, wow, I'm incredible, right? And not just say that, say, I am incredible. I am limitless. I am amazing, right? I am awesome, right? Whatever you do to reinforce it, where you want to reinforce it, 3 different areas. When you remember to remember, first of all, feel good, like congratulate yourself, celebrate yourself, right? And then when you're actually in the act of doing it, then just give yourself some praise also as well. Give yourself some praise, like, wow, that's amazing. I'm actually doing it also. Because again, whatever you reinforce, you get more of. Because again, it's interesting because this is my birthday week. We celebrate. When do we celebrate? We celebrate like our birthday. We might celebrate an anniversary. We might celebrate a graduation. We have like very infrequent times, once, 2, 3 times a year. You have permission to celebrate. And so what if you brought celebration into your learning? What if you brought your celebration into your routines, right? And where you want to celebrate? 3 places. You want to celebrate when you remember something, right? Because when you remember to remember where you put your keys, celebrate that. When you remember to remember where you parked your car, to take a moment, instead of being distracted, your mind is different places, then celebrate that. Just like, yeah, wow, I remembered to remember. Because you're really good at beating yourself up when you forget something or, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue, or where did I put it? Oh, I'm so nervous about what I need to say, right? I studied all this time. And you're really good at pointing out, maybe not you, but maybe someone you know. intimately. But we all agree with that. So all I'm saying is just balance it out. All right. So you reward yourself and celebrate when you remember to remember, when you're actually remembering, and then afterwards, after you successfully retrieved it, you know that person's name, or you remember where you put the keys, or whatever that habit happened to be. It could be for working out, right? You remember to work out, cheer yourself on, right? Victory, yes, whatever you do when you get that basket in there, or you got that great job or anything else, what you do inherently. It's different for each person. There's something you say, something you see in your mind, something that you physically do, some movement or a celebration, right? And then you're actually working out, celebrate that. And then afterwards, then most people if they do reward themselves, they reward after the fact. And I'm just saying, in terms of how your brain works, you'll get even greater retention if you do it in the process, instead of you doing something, accomplish something, and then a day or two later you reward yourself with some food or some kind of pleasurable activity, right? And so remember to remember, because that's really what celebrating is all about. Actually, when we're talking about celebrating, because if we always we don't celebrate what we did as much as we punish ourselves for the things that we don't do, right? In Latin, celebratus, it means to assemble, to honor, right? To sing praises of, it's demonstrations. You know what it is? One of the definitions I liked, it's demonstrations of joy. Demonstrations of joy. How can you demonstrate joy and praise for yourself when you're doing something right? Specifically, celebrating when you remember to remember something, celebrate that. And when you're actually going through the process of remembering it, studying it, or using one of dozens of different techniques we teach in our courses and our book, limitlessbook.com. And also, finally, when you successfully completed the habit of journaling or meditating or remembering, that if you're maybe doing in our app, we have a number of people who are doing 10 words a day, remembering the definitions of 10 words a day. When you successfully retrieve them, or you memorize that deck of cards, or remember those people's names on that next Zoom meeting, then you can celebrate that also as well. But those are the three areas. Does that make sense? Let me check in also with Instagram. Does that make sense, everybody on Instagram? That's the thing, because that's what people struggle with sometimes with, what is it, like imposter syndrome, right? Many of you are familiar with it. Basically, these feelings, talk about feelings and emotions and memory of inadequacy, even though those feelings might be completely unjustified, where we mitigate ourselves. And so what I'm saying here is that emotion has it's a very substantial influence on cognitive processing, right, for human beings, right, including perception, including attention, including learning, including memory, including reasoning, including problem solving. And so how can you add more emotions to your memories and add more emotions to the things, the habits? Remember, first you create your habits, then your habits what? Create you. First, you create your habits, then your habits create you. And when you add emotions, right, it helps to facilitate that encoding part. It helps to facilitate the retrieval of information more efficiently, right? And so emotion is an immense influence, again, on your motivation, on your attention, on all of your behavior. And so that is the mental trick. How at any given time can you add more joy, more celebration, more self-praise? And I know it's sometimes awkward to be able to do that because you may be humble or you don't want to be selfish. But when you add emotion into your learning, into your memory, into the things that you want to remember, and habits are just memories, right? And so how can you add those memories? Sometimes all you need is a shot of positive emotion. Add a dose of awe, add a dose of praise, add a dose of celebration, and it could reinforce those small little changes. And remember, inch by inch, it's a cinch, right? Little by little, a little becomes a lot. So where today, over the next few days, can you add a little bit emotion to your memory? Because all learning is state dependent, just like life. Remember, Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. They'll always remember how you made them feel, because we're not logical. We are what? We are biological. All right. So how can you just have victory? Celebrate your wins more. Whenever you do something right, don't even wait till you do something right. when you remember to do something and you're actually doing it. And afterwards, you certainly can reward yourself, because whatever you reinforce and you reward, you're going to get more of. And this, you could be thinking about how this could apply towards your children, towards the people in your family, towards your work associate, towards your customers, right? Celebrating the things that you know are good for them, and they're going to do it more often, right? When you point out what they're doing that's good, then you give them a jolt of celebration. They're more likely to do that in the future, as opposed to, like, let's say they don't call you, right? And you're really upset because they don't call you, but then they call you. Don't beat them up. Give them joy and celebrate them, because then they're going to associate that level of positivity, right? That dopamine, which is the molecule again of more, and they're going to be able to do more of that to be able to get that same kind of feeling. So where can you reinforce good behavior for yourself, and also good behavior for them also as well, for the people around you? Maybe you're a teacher and you want to do that with students. So, as through the process, when they remember to do something, reward that, right? Just celebrate. So a pat on the back, a bit, maybe a smile, positive reinforcement that they could see, some kind words. When they're actually doing that thing, praise them. When they're cleaning their room, when they're actually studying. And then also afterwards, you can reward them also as well. All right. Does that make sense? Celebrate. Make sure that's the big thing. Don't wait for a birthday to celebrate, right? You can celebrate every single day. And when you do, it'll improve your memory. It'll improve your life. And again, if your life is worth living, it's certainly worth remembering. This is your brain coach, Jim Kwik. If you got value out of this, I challenge you right now, take a simple act. Take a screenshot of this. Share one thing that you learned in this conversation.
Welcome to this week's Kwik Brain Challenge. This is your Kwik Challenge. And remember, this series that we are doing for you is about mental fitness. It's about making real change in your life by challenging yourself to do brand new things, to create neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. And why wouldn't you want to do this? Right? Because this is novelty. We talk about how to make new connections, how to add stimulus into your life to be able to challenge yourself, so that way you could challenge yourself in other areas, so you could have that strength. And that's really what we're about today, about strength. So I'm in the Kwik Brain gym today, and the reference episodes that you want to, if you haven't listened to them before, we're going to talk about physical exercises you could do to be able to boost your brain power. This is really exciting stuff, right? So the two episodes you want to listen to or re-listen to as a refresher are episodes number 65 with movement coach and expert Aaron Alexander. Incredible episode on how the body moves to create more of these grooves, if you will. And the other episode is number 82 with our friend Sean Stevenson, sleep expert. We've done a number of episodes with Sean, but also we talk about physical activity. And we actually come to my gym here and we show physical movements you could do to boost your brain power. Now, I'm gonna show you another exercise, because here's the challenge. They say sitting is the new smoking, that the primary reason you have a brain is actually to control your movement. But did you know that as your body moves, you actually stimulate what they call brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is like fertilizer for your brain. It helps create new brain cells and new connections. So you have to challenge yourself physically. So I recommend people go for a walk and study for 25 minutes. We talk about in previous episodes time management, the Pomodoro Technique, how your focus, it starts to wane after about 25 minutes. That's why every episode is 20 minutes or less. And that's why we stay in your focus and your flow. And that's by design, because you're busy, right? And your time is very valuable. So we make it extremely concise and to the point. And so we want to encourage you to move every 30 minutes. And one of the things you could do to get that activity in is learning how to juggle. Now, if you've gone through our reading program, we have a very structured 21-day program on how to triple your reading speed at kwiklearning.com. But part of what we do is we train you to increase your peripheral vision, so when you look at a word, you can actually see not just that word, but the word to the left and to the right. And that helps you to be able to absorb information faster. Now, specifically when I teach juggling, and now I might say juggling, you're like, Jim, I am not coordinated, I can't even catch a ball. Here's the thing. little by little, a little becomes a lot. That's why we do these daily challenges, because consistency compounds. And you start to develop a competence, because it's a confidence-competence loop in psychology. The more competent you get, the more confident you get, the more likely you're going to do it, which increases your skill level and which increases your overall certainty and confidence again. So it's self-reinforcing. So what I want you to do is I want you to grab a ball. Now, if you know how to juggle, do this with me. And I'm not going to take out flaming swords, or anything like electric saws or anything like that. What we're going to do is we're going to start really small, all right? Because again, a little by little, a little becomes a lot. It's about changing habits. And what we're doing throughout this entire challenge, #QuickChallenge, is showing you are a master of your habits. You're not at the effect of your habits. You could create your habits, and we're doing it through this process. And again, we're always going to award, so make sure when you do this and you #QuickChallenge that you post it and tag us in it, because as you know, we put out Amazon gift cards and our favorite books, and we repost some of our favorite also as well. So there was a study done in Oxford University saying jugglers actually have bigger brains. They create more white matter, and that's really exciting. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook on video, you could see me demonstrate this. If you're not, just listen into the audio and you get a sense of it. And certainly you can watch any video online and teach you the basics of juggling. Now, I'm not a professional juggler. I grew up as a tennis player, so I would have tennis balls like this, and I'd be waiting for a court, and I taught myself how to be able to learn it. What you're going to do is you're going to start with one ball. Just one ball. Now, I actually recommend you do it over a bed or over a couch, because that way you're not chasing things all over the place. The other recommendation I would have is actually using a rolled up sock. Now, why would I ask you to roll up a sock? Is because they don't roll, it just falls flat. But what I want you to do is just with one ball in your dominant hand, I just want you to practice going like this, just tossing it from one hand to another. Now, one hand to another. Right? And here's the thing, a lot of people, if you drop it, that's absolutely okay. Because remember, there's no failure, there's only feedback. And so everyone thinks that if you drop it, you made a mistake. But it's a good metaphor for your life, because you're not making mistakes, right? The only people who make mistakes are people who try. So that's just proof that you're trying. But maybe failure is not the opposite of success, maybe it's part of it. Just like a child learning how to walk falls 3, 4, 5, 500 times. They don't say, oh, I failed at walking, I'm not gonna do it. But sometimes as adults, we do that. So you wanna reframe that. And so what you're gonna focus on, in fact, just drop the ball right now, just drop it. So you get that over with, all right? So nobody's perfect, that's not the goal. Now what you're gonna do, learning to juggle, put it in your dominant hand and just toss it to the other hand. Just toss it back and forth, toss the ball, put a smile on it, breathe. You have to breathe through this process. I don't know why some people tend to hold their breath. Just toss it, and you're not gonna get it perfect. And people are like, Jim, I'm having trouble catching it. It's not so much the catch, but it's the toss. You want it to go about up to the top of your head. So you're creating an arc, it's going right to the top of your head, and then you're just catching it. Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna practice this each day. And once you have the one ball down, then you're gonna introduce another ball, or another sock, if you will. And what are you gonna do? One in each hand, just one in each hand, and you're gonna toss one. But here's what you don't wanna do. You don't wanna toss them at the same time. Why? Because why? They're just gonna collide together, right? So you're not gonna do that. The other reason why is you're gonna pause. What you're gonna do is I want you to imagine two peaks. So imagine two peaks or two triangles. And what you're gonna toss is you're gonna toss one ball to the opposite peak, and when it reaches the highest point, that's your cue to toss the other ball, okay? So watch this. This ball goes here, and when it hits here, then you're gonna throw the other ball. You see that? And so if you're not watching on video, certainly you could watch this on YouTube and Facebook also as well. A lot of you are listening to on Stitcher or iTunes, which is absolutely fine, or Pandora, Google Play. So what you're gonna do is watch this. 1, 2, 3, and then you're gonna stop. 1, 2, 3, stop. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Remember, two peaks, one up to the one side, the other one to the opposite side. And again, the key is when it reaches its top, that's your cue to throw the other one, because you can't throw them at the same time, because that's not juggling. Because what you don't want to do also is this. This is just passing the ball to the other hand. That's not juggling, okay? Both balls have to go in the air. 1, 2, 3. And then finally, the next third step, when you mastered that or get good at that, you feel comfortable, then I want you to grab 3 balls, 2 in your dominant hand, and this is what it looks like, the finished product. like this. And notice when I'm doing this, I'm looking right at you, I'm looking right at the lens if you're watching me on video. But it's a great exercise. We do it for our quick readers because not only they're reading 3 times faster, but they actually have better focus, comprehension, retention, because we really focus on smart reading. But the reason we do it again is in order for me here, I can't look at all 3 balls, right? I only have 2 eyes. But in order to look at all of it, I soften my gaze and I can take more of it in, which is why it's a great exercise to be a faster reader. And so are you up for the challenge, Kwik Brains? Are you up for the challenge? We know the science behind jugglers and having bigger brains and making more connections. And also it's a great activity to do to actually relax your eyes when you're studying or to get off the computer screen. So again, you start with 1 ball, do it in front of a couch or a bed so when it falls, you could just, you don't have to bend over to pick it up, it's right there. Try it with a sock, nothing crazy, don't light any kind of garden tools or anything like that. And then just start 1 by 1. 1 ball, do that for a few days or a week or 2, get 1 ball, and then add another one. And then notice what we're doing. It's about mental fitness. We're exercising, getting ourselves to do things that might be difficult in order to be able to expand that, because how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? How you do anything is how you do everything. So get good at doing difficult things, and then the things that you need to do in your life, it's just like meditation. You're not practicing juggling to get better at juggling. You're practicing juggling also to get better with your brain power and get better with your life. So what I want you to do, Kwik Brains, is take a picture, ask somebody to take a picture of you while you're juggling. And even if you're not doing it great, and post it. And tag me at Jim Kwik, at Kwik Learning also as well, and share your experience on this. And we'll repost some of our favorites. And as always, every single week, we will award, just like we do with our 1 book a week and other challenges that we do, Amazon gift cards and our favorite books from our guests. So are you up for the challenge? Let's do this.
How do you learn anything faster? How do you do it? I want you to think of a subject or a skill where you'd like to shorten the learning curve, where it doesn't take 10,000 hours or years or even months. I want you to think of a very specific subject or skill. Maybe it's martial arts, maybe it's music, maybe it's Mandarin, maybe it's marketing. I want to show you a process, 4 steps on how to absorb it in a fraction of the time. Now, in order to do that, I want you to remember the word fast. Fast, F-A-S-T. The letter F stands for this, forget. And you're like, Jim, you're the memory coach. Why are you telling me to forget to learn faster? Well, here's the thing. I want you to temporarily forget 3 things. Number 1, what you already know about the subject. Because here's the thing. A lot of people don't learn faster because they feel like they already know it. Does that make sense? That if your cup is already full of information, then you can't pour new information in. And that's the metaphor for it. And so people don't learn faster if they feel like they know the subject already. So temporarily forget about what you already know about the subject. It's cliche, but your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's what? It's open. So you can learn something brand new. The second thing I would say to forget is this, situational things. Like your mind, we're going to do a whole episode on this, on multitasking, is not capable of focusing on multiple things at once. So if you're trying to focus on the kids and trying to focus on the clients and trying to focus on something that's going on, in your personal life and be present to learn something brand new, you're not putting your attention, your presence to do that. And so maybe your attention is being split 4 different ways, so you're not going to learn it faster. So temporarily forget about anything that's not urgent and important. And the third thing I want you to forget is this. I want you to forget about your limitations. A lot of people, and you're like, well, because people come to me all the time, they're like, Jim, I have a horrible memory and I'm growing older and this runs in my family and I can't remember names. And here's the thing. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Let me say that again. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So you don't know what's possible. Many times when I'm in front of an audience, I'll memorize 100 people's names live, or 100 words that the audience gives me, or 100-digit number, if you will, forwards and backwards. I always tell people, I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's really possible, because the truth is, you could do it too. It's in fact, you weren't taught how to do it. That's the only thing. If anything, you were taught a lie, that your memory or that your learning or your potential is somehow fixed like your shoe size. And we know that's absolutely not true. We've discovered more about the human brain more in the past 20 years than the previous 2,000 years. And what we found is that we're grossly underestimating what's capable of doing. So I want you to temporarily forget about your limitations. Now, after you do that, the A in FAST stands for active. Active. You have to be active, because a lot of people don't learn well because they're passive learners, and traditional education actually trained us to be passive. It was assembly line, one size fits all, cookie cutter approach. Sit quietly by yourself, don't talk to your neighbor, just sit there and consume information. But here's the thing, how the brain works. Your brain doesn't learn based on consumption, it learns through creation. You don't learn by consuming, you learn by creating. And so there's an activity that needs to be there, because what you put in is what you get out. Here's what you want to remember. Learning is not a spectator sport. Learning is not a spectator sport. So how can you be more active in your learning? Well, you could take notes. We're going to do a whole episode on taking notes, the best ways of taking notes. You could ask questions, right? You're part of quickbrain.com. You could post lots of questions, be interactive. You could post them online on social media, and you could tag me at Jim Kwik, Kwik, hashtag Kwik Brain. You could ask questions, right? You could get involved in this process. So the more active you are, the more you're going to learn. The third thing, F stands for forget, A is active, the S stands for state. State. And what does it mean? What does state mean? It's kind of like a snapshot of the mood of your mind and your body. It's like how you're feeling. If on a scale of 0 to 10, the emotions that you're feeling. Because here's the key to a better memory. Long-term memory is this. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. The emotion is the state. But here's a challenge. Think about school, and if you were quizzed what you learned back in school about presidents of countries or the periodic table, are you going to remember that? Most people don't, because they learned in a very bored, tired state. And information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. But if the emotion is 0, 0 times anything is what? Is 0, and that's the big challenge. And so who's responsible for your state? You are, right? Your feelings. How do you improve your state? You could change your body, right? You could change your posture. You could change your breathing. Like right now, sit or stand the way you'd be sitting or standing if you're totally interested and energized. Right? You moved, right? You move in certain ways. Or think about things that you're going to get, the benefits you're going to get from applying this information. It changes your state. So always, here's the thing that you want to remember. This is the tweetable. All learning is state dependent. All learning is state dependent. So you want to go in with the right state. States of curiosity, states of fascination, states of joy, states of fascination, if you will. Here's the quote from Rumi. It says this. It says, sell your cleverness for bewilderment. Sell your cleverness for bewilderment, and you're more likely to learn faster, right? And so that's your state. And finally, the T in FAST stands for teach. Teach. And what do I mean by that? As you're listening to this show and future shows, I want you to learn as if you were going to teach it to somebody else. Learn it as if you're going to teach it to somebody else. Because if you had to give a presentation the next morning on this information, are you going to have a different level of attention? Of course you are. Are you going to ask better questions? Of course you are. If you had to give a presentation the next day, are you going to take better notes? Of course you are. So learn with the intention of teaching somebody else, and you're going to learn it better. In fact, here's what you want to remember. When I teach something, I get to learn it twice. Say that to yourself. When I teach something, I get to learn it twice. There's this phrase out there that says, those who can't do, teach. Those who can't do, teach. I never thought it was a negative. I always thought, wow, I can't do something, but if I teach it, then I can do it. And so that's a wonderful way to be able to accelerate your learning. So remember, the 4 keys to learning any subject or skill faster. Remember, FAST. What does the F stand for? Forget. Forget what you already know about the subject. Temporary forget about what's going on situationally. That's not urgent, important. And then temporary forget about what? Your limitations. Good. The A stands for what? Active. Active. You have to be active. You have to roll up your sleeves. You have to get involved. So the bad news is it takes effort. The good news, it doesn't take as much as you think. Be active in your learning. You don't learn through consumption. You learn through creating and co-creating. The S stands for what? State. All learning is state dependent, so put yourself in that learning state. And finally, the T stands for what? It stands for teach. It stands for teach, because when you teach something, you learn to teach something, you get to learn it twice. So I want you to apply FAST, F-A-S-T, in your future, and you are well on your way to unleashing what we call your Kwik brain. How do I have quick recall? How do you have a better memory? So if you feel absent-minded, like senior moments are coming a little bit early, and you want to fix your forgetfulness, that's what this episode is all about. So make sure you take notes, and we are going to cover note-taking, effective note-taking in a future episode, one of the most amazing ways to be able to take notes so it boosts your retention. But right now, even if you can't, let's get into this. This session is all about supercharging your memory. So if you feel a little bit absent-minded, like senior moments are coming a little bit early, maybe you walk into a room and forget why you're there, or you go to the grocery store to pick up one specific thing and you come back with 2 bags of groceries with everything except for that one thing that you needed to get. If you've ever read a page in a book and got to the end and just forgot what you just read, and you go back and you reread what you read and you still don't remember what you read, and we'll cover that in a speed reading episode. If this is you, then this is the session. You want to pay very close attention to this, because I believe 2 of the most costly words in business and in life are I forgot. I forgot. I forgot to bring it. I forgot to do it. I forgot where I put it. I forgot that conversation. I forgot that meeting. I forgot that person's name, right? We're going to talk about how to confidently remember names and faces in a future episode, but that's like one of the most important business etiquette networking skills and capabilities there is, because it's really hard to show somebody that you're going to care for their future or their family or their finances or anything that you are selling them if you don't just care enough to remember their name. So in this episode, I'm going to give you 3 keys for a supercharged memory, to how to have what I call quick recall. And so we're going to activate your quick brain to be able to do that. Now, when I do a presentation on stage, I'll routinely remember a room full of people's names, or I'll have them give me 100 words or 100 numbers to memorize forwards and backwards. And if you've seen me on stage or on YouTube do this, I always tell people I don't do this to impress you. I don't. I do this more to express to you what's really possible, because the truth is you could do it too. Regardless of your age or your background, your career, your level of education, your financial situation, your gender, your personal history, you could do it too. You just were not taught. You weren't taught. If anything, you were taught a lie that somehow that your learning or your intelligence or your memory is somehow fixed like your shoe size. And it's absolutely not true. We've discovered more about the human brain in the past 20 years than the previous 2,000 years. And what we've learned is that we're grossly underestimating its own capabilities. And so that's really what this show is really all about. Me here as your memory coach to be able to show you this thing. And what this thing is that there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's just a trained memory and an untrained memory. And what I mean by that is school is a great place to learn what to learn, right? They taught you math and history and science and Spanish. They're all great things on what to learn, but there are very few classes on how to learn, right? How to think differently, how to be able to solve problems, how to be creative, how to focus, concentrate, read faster, how to remember things. And that's really what this podcast is really all about. It's all about giving you the tools to be able to be a strong meta learner. Meta learning is learning how to learn. I think that's the most important skill to master in the 21st century. And how we're going to do it is by unleashing what I call your quick brain. So let's get to it. This is a very personal subject to me because, as many of you know, I grew up with learning challenges. At the age of 5, I had a head injury, which left me learning disabled in lots of different ways. I had no focus. I had no memory to speak of. It actually took me an extra few years to learn how to read, and it put me on this quest to be able to solve this riddle. I want to understand how my brain works so I could work my brain. I want to understand how my memory works so I could work my memory. So here's the thing you want to remember. Research says that about 1/3 of your memory is predetermined by genetics and biology. About 1/3. That leaves 2/3 in your control. And I'm going to, in a future episode, tell you the 10 keys for unlocking that 2/3. Right now, what we're going to focus on is your memory. And I'm going to give you 3 keys to be able to unleash what I call your quick recall. So you can learn things faster and not only learn it, but retain it. You don't want to learn something, listen to a podcast, go to a seminar or a conference, or read a book and not retain it, right? And so there's 3 things you want to remember for better memory. And I want you to remember MOM, M-O-M. Remember MOM. And the first M is this. And I'm going to ask you a question before I tell you what that M is. Let's apply this towards something like remembering names. Because if somebody asks me, they come to me and say, Jim, I have a horrible memory, and can you improve my memory? It's kind of like me listening to someone say, oh, Jim, can you improve my sports? It's like, what sport specifically would you like to improve? Would you like to learn languages? Would you like to be able to remember numbers and PIN numbers and passcodes, vocabulary words, give speeches without notes, be able to remember what you read? And these are all the things that we're going to be covering in this series. So let's apply it towards one specific thing. Let's apply it towards remembering names. All right, so you have some context and some relevance for this. And so let's say most people, how are you with names? Have you ever met somebody, they give you their name and then seconds later their name just disappears out of your head? Of course, it happens to the best of us, right? The handshake breaks and all of a sudden the name just disappears. And my goal is to be able to help you overcome what I call the 6-second syndrome. 6-second syndrome is like you have to do something with that name in 6 seconds. Otherwise, what happens? It just disappears, right? So let's say you have trouble remembering someone's name, but let's say that there's a suitcase of $100,000 cash for you or your favorite charity if you just remember the name of the next stranger you meet. Are you going to remember that person's name? Of course you are, right? It's because you were motivated, right? The M in MOM stands for motivation. It's like you had trouble remembering names before, and all of a sudden you're incentivized, and now you're a memory expert. And I do believe you are a memory expert, that you have a memory expert, that we all have a memory expert inside of us. And so notice that the M stands for motivation. It had nothing to do with your capabilities or your potential. It had everything to do with whether or not you're motivated to remember. And so I want to state this up front is this. As your coach, I want to hold you to a high standard. I don't want to challenge you on this, is that it had nothing to do with whether or not you could remember a name. It had everything to do with whether or not you want to remember someone's name. So how do you improve your level of motivation? It's very simple. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. I want you to tune into everyone's favorite radio station. It's called WIIFM. WIIFM. Get it in New York, you get it in Sydney, you get it in London, you get it in Hong Kong, you get it in Los Angeles. It's what's in it for me. What's in it for me? And I would ask yourself when you're meeting someone for the first time, or you need to improve your memory in any area, why do you want to remember this? Why do you want to remember this? Why do you remember this language? Why do you want to remember this speech? Why do you want to remember this PIN number? Because if you can't come up with a reason, you won't remember. Because here's the tweetable. Reasons reap results. Reasons reap results. So a simple thing you could do to tap into more of your motivation is ask yourself, why do I want to remember this? Right? One of my favorite books is a book called Start With Why. Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He had a very popular TED Talk. I believe there's a success formula that goes from your head to your heart to your hands. But you could visualize things in your head all day, affirm things in your head, think thoughts in your head. But if you're not acting with your hands, usually what's missing is that second H, which is your heart. It's the storehouse of emotion, the energy of motion. So always check in with yourself when you want to learn something brand new. Check what your motive is, because motive matters. Now, the O in MOM stands for observation. Observation. A lot of people come to me and they say, Jim, I have such a horrible memory, and they're fighting for like all the reasons why, because their age, or this runs in their family, or they didn't get the education. And here's the thing, when you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. When you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. So you want to mitigate the negative self-talk. Dr. Daniel Amen calls them ants, automatic negative talk. And so you want to eliminate that, reduce that. But the other thing is, a lot of people, when they're complaining about their memory, they blame their retention. And it's not your retention, it's your attention. Let me say it again. It's not your retention, it's your attention. We're going to talk about leadership a lot in this series, specifically so you can be a leader in your field, whatever your business happens to be, your passions in life. And I always tell people that leaders are readers, right? Leaders are learners all the time. And we're going to be talking about speed reading in a number of episodes on how to read technical reading and how to boost your reading focus and reading speed and all of that. But I always tell people also that leaders have a great memory. Leaders have a wonderful memory because it shows that they care. For example, I've had the opportunity to meet President Bill Clinton on a number of occasions. And I remember the second time I got to meet him, he remembered my name. And I was very impressed. I was very flattered. And I remember asking him, how do you do it? You know, what memory techniques do you use to be able to remember people's names? And he remembered the last conversation we had. And I was really impressed. And President Clinton tells me, he says, I don't use a memory technique. And he tells me these stories. And one of them was about his grandfather in Arkansas with the kids. And he would tell stories. And afterwards, he would see, not just tell the stories, he would actually at the end ask questions to see if they were paying attention. I thought that was really interesting. And I noticed that when we were talking, there were a lot of important people in the room, and yet I had his undivided attention and observation. That he wasn't, sometimes when people go to events, you'll sense that the person, or maybe this is you, looking over their shoulders and looking to see who else is important in the room. But I got no sense of that. Or people are distract themselves, if not visually, externally, internally. They'll talk to themselves. And I honestly feel like a lot of people, what they call listening is not really listening. They're just waiting for their turn to reply. They're waiting for their turn to speak, right? And so they're thinking about how they are going to respond, and that's not paying attention. So if you want to boost your memory, not only is motivation important, but observation is very important. Most people would agree that President Clinton is a powerful communicator. He's got incredible charisma, and he's got incredible memory. But I think his powerful presence comes from being powerfully present with people. Does that make sense? And that's something that we could do also. When next time you're out there and you want to improve your memory and impress people with your ability to care and remember them, is just be present with them. And even if you write down the word listen and just scramble the letters, what other word does it spell? It spells the word silent. It spells the word silent. It does. And so just be silent and just listen. You can remember one word, one person's name. Very easy to be able to do. You have this supercomputer, what we call your Kwik brain, between your ears. And it's just one or two words. Just be present and silent and you'll remember the name. And then finally, the final M in mom is the mechanics. The mechanics. And I don't mean the person that fixes your car. I mean the tools, the techniques, the recipes, the strategy, the step-by-step system on how to be able to boost your vocabulary, how to remember PIN numbers and passcodes, how to give a speech without notes, how to learn a second or third language. And that's really what this podcast is all about. Every episode giving you the mechanics, the step-by-step strategies on how to improve your focus, improve your concentration, improve your creativity, improve your ability to think. Because I think learning how to learn is the most impressive and powerful skill. It's the biggest needle mover for your learning and also for your life. And so you can look forward to that in future episodes. So just remember this. There is no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's just a trained memory and an untrained memory. All you have to do is remember mom, motivation, observation, and the mechanics. Having a trained memory will accelerate your achievements in every single area of your life. You want to use what you learned in this session, and you will enjoy your Kwik brain. In this episode, I'm going to share with you speed study secrets to cut your studying time while getting better results by studying smart, not just hard. Now, this is intended for all kinds of students, or if you're a parent of a student, middle school, high school, college, graduate, maybe you have to go for continuing education with your work, maybe you're a student of life, basically anyone who wants to study with ease, enjoyment, and effectiveness. Now, this is a topic near to my heart and my head. Many of you know I grew up with learning challenges from an early childhood brain injury. I struggled every single day, every day in school, and I thought it was so unfair that I worked so much harder than everyone else. In this episode, I'm going to share with you skills and strategies, brain hacks, if you will, that I've taught everywhere from Caltech to Harvard, and in our best-selling online course called Kwik Student, which is basically 16-hour boot camp used by students in over 150 countries who have now cracked the code to higher test scores and have maximized their return on their studying time. If you like information about that, just go to kwikstudent.com, KWIK student.com, and you'll have the ultimate academic advantage. So, You might have heard this phrase, study smart, not hard, but where do you learn how to do it? In school, you learn what to learn, math, history, science, Spanish, but not so much on how to learn. It's rare to find classes on how to learn, how to think, how to remember, and how to study. In this fast-paced, ever-changing world, these are the skills that will serve you as a student, not only in school, but also in life. And that's what this episode is. So let's get started. I want you to take rapid notes. And if you're driving or you're working out, I want you to use your memory techniques that you've learned from prior episodes, because this really is not even just a podcast. This is an academy. So let's activate your quick student brain now with these advanced study tips. And when I say advanced, this is not typically what's taught in like school or online. Like use a highlighter and rewrite your notes and make an outline and sit in the front of the class and use flashcards. All those are really good. But the things I'm going to talk about here is based in neuroscience and brain science. And so I'm going to share with you 4 things you need to stop immediately and 4 things you want to start. 4 things to stop and 4 things to start. Number 1, I want you to stop multitasking. That's right, stop multitasking. Many of you believe that you're doing 2 things at once or 3 things at once, and you're not actually multitasking, because every single time you switch from one task to another, you have to regain your focus and your flow. And it can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. So the more accurate term is not multitasking, it's actually called task switching. But it takes more time, it's less productive, and there's more errors. There was a study done at University of London saying it can even lower your IQ. Multitasking or attempting to multitask can even lower your IQ. Similar that if you stayed up to all night. If you stayed up all night, it could actually drop up to 15 points. So I want you to do one single mental thing at a time. So stop multitasking. The second thing I'm going to ask you to stop is I want you to stop and eliminate distractions. In order for you to soar to the head of your class, you must focus. So turn your phone off, put it on airplane mode, put it in another room if you will. You could also use self-control apps if you're going to have your phone there, like Freedom or Focus Me, to block certain websites like Facebook or Twitter. Or you could even block everything except for the sites you need for your work. And I would ask you to reference the episode we did on fast focus and productivity. That's something very important to re-listen to if you haven't listened to it yet. Number 3, I want you to stop cramming. Stop cramming. Many people don't study for days or weeks, and then they'll pull an all-nighter. They'll go 6 or 7 hours straight, which is really bad because you need sleep. That's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. But the big mistake that students are making that I see over and over again is they study for too long a period without taking breaks. You heard me right. It's important to take breaks. We know you study better when you study in chunks. Your retention diminishes after about 25 or 30 minutes. There's a time management method called the Pomodoro Technique, where you set a timer to break for your work into intervals, traditionally about 25 or 30 minutes. And then you take about a 2 to 3 or 4, maybe a 5-minute break to stretch, to breathe, to hydrate, and so on. Remember, as your body moves, your brain grooves. It also takes advantage of 2 very important memory principles that we teach in Quick Recall. It's called primacy and recency. Primacy says you tend to remember something in the beginning. Recency says you tend to remember stuff towards the end, meaning that if I gave you a list of 30 words and you didn't have some of these memory techniques, you'd probably remember the words in the beginning, primacy, and the words towards the end, which are more recent or recency. So what happens is if you study for 6 hours straight with no breaks, you remember the information towards the beginning and towards the end, but there's a huge dip in between for all that time. And the benefit of taking breaks every 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever you choose to break, is you create more beginnings and more ends, so you can recover a lot of that information. The 4th thing I'm going to ask you to stop is to hack this thing called acrasia. And now this is the state of acting against your own better judgment. And Socrates was said to have asked precisely, how is it possible that if one judges action A to be the best course of action, why would anyone do anything other than A? Right? You want to major in the major things, and focusing on the 80-20 rule, right? Pareto's principle. Focus on the 20% of the things that give you 80% of the results or the rewards. And the challenge is a lot of people can't stick with a course of behavior. So I would recommend apps like Stick or Be-Minder, which helps you to keep your commitments. Also, listen, if you haven't, to the episode on how to stop procrastinating. The earlier episode we did called How to Stop Procrastinating. That will give you a number of brain hacks to be able to do the things that are holding you back. Do the things that you need to do that are holding you back. Now that we've gone through the 4 things you want to stop, I'm going to rapid fire give you the 4 things that you want to start. You want to start these 4 things. So number 1, I want you to practice what we call active recall. Active recall. I actually don't recommend you reread textbook chapters over and over and over again. That's what most people do through rote repetition, because you could delude yourself that you know the information that you're reading instead of really testing yourself. I'd rather you close the book and recall and recite all that you could remember, because there's a difference between recognition and recollection. There's a big difference between recognition and recollection. Many times when you're rereading that chapter over again, you actually delude yourself thinking that you remember this information when you're really just recognizing it in front of you. Because recognizing requires a trigger for you to remember something, and you may not get that on a test. You probably very well likely get that on a test. So study actively with a focus on recollection and quiz yourself. Don't just glance over your notes, your highlighted notes. Number 2, I would say, is start doing spaced repetition. Spaced repetition. Basically, what this is saying is you want to be able to space out your studying into intervals like you could your body when you're working it out, and separating the information, reviewing it through intervals, like maybe reviewing it an hour later, a day later, a week later, a few weeks later, helps to take it from your short-term to your long-term memory. And if you want software, many of you are very digital, that could help you accelerate that. There's a free software program called Anki, and it's like online flashcards, but they break it up into spaced repetition. So it makes it very straightforward on how to learn a language. Studying for medical or law exams, we use this kind of spaced repetition for memorizing people's names or faces, brushing up on your geography, mastering long poems, word for word verbatim, even practicing musical instruments like guitar chords. It helps having spaced repetition. Number 3 thing to start is using your sense of smell. Using your sense of smell. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that your environment gets anchored to the information that you're learning. And so you can't always bring the environment into the place. So it's obviously better to study in the room that you're going to take the exam in, because you're unconsciously going to anchor that to the temperature, to the lighting, to the smells. All of that will get anchored to the information. But we can't always do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the environment in there with you. And one of the most powerful ways of doing that, actually most connected for your memory out of your senses, is your sense of smell, your olfactory sense. And so spraying an unfamiliar scent onto your body, maybe it could be an essential oil, a lip balm, a chewing gum. It's very unique flavor or scent. It could be a perfume or a cologne. While you're doing that, while you're studying, then you actually put it back on when you need to be able to basically spray it again when you need to take an exam. And so the same thing could work with a different kind of unique kind of gum, will work the same way. Also, there are certain scents, for example, essential oils that actually stimulate and wake up the mind. Peppermint is very good for your focus of your senses, to improve your memory. Rosemary is really good for your memory also as well. So try tapping into your sense of smell. And then finally, number 4 thing to start doing is to listen to music. And not music that would distract you, not heavy metal, not rap, but research done at Stanford School of Medicine says that playing certain types of music, like classical music, especially from the Baroque era, it's 60 beats per minute, which is also harmonizes with the resting heart rate. And that could actually help accelerate the students to engage parts of your brain to help you pay attention and make predictions. It puts you into what they call an alpha state, a brainwave state, an alpha state, where you're relaxed and aware. Not to mention, listening to music can improve your mood and change your whole outlook in studying in general. And as a bonus, I'll add this in here to continue education, is to sharpen your saw. Sharpen your saw. One of my favorite books by mentor Dr. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where they studied all these effective people, broke it down to 7 habits. And the final habit, number 7, is called sharpen the saw. Metaphorically, if you had all this wood you need to chop and cut, you don't want to wait to be able to sharpen your blade. If you have a dull blade, sharpen it first. So I would recommend highly that you listen to all the past episodes and subscribe so you receive all the new ones for Kwik Brain automatically each week so you don't miss anything. I highly recommend for students the episode on how to learn anything faster, the top 10 keys to unlock your optimal brain health. So very important. It's foundational. Fast and fun way to recall lots of information. That's the episode we did on memorizing technical information like the periodic table. Invaluable. How to create new habits fast. That's study habits. How to read faster. And the episode on how to take notes is essential for study skills. And of course, if you want the very best advantage, join our Kwik Student Online program. It's 16 hours of my very best training on how to succeed with enjoyment and ease. Go to kwikstudent.com. Now, did you like this episode? Please share it. Let me know what your favorite brain tip is. So tag me and follow me at Jim Kwik on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for new updates and more brain tips. And use what you learned, and you and your Kwik Brain will rapidly soar to the top of your class.
Hi, Kwik Brain. It's your brain coach. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. 3 things to do. Number 1, make sure you share this because when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. Update your learning so you can update other people's learning as well. Number 2, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a thing because if you miss a video, you miss a lot. And finally, make sure you hit that bell so you're notified and you find out when we put out the latest and the greatest. One extra thing, if you want really close attention, then text me. Here is my phone number, 310-299-9362. Did you remember that number? 310-299-9362. Shoot me a text and we'll stay in touch. Ask me your burning question. And I wish your days be full of lots of life, lots of love, lots of laughter, and always lots of learning. I'll see you in our next video.